Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes.
Hello and welcome back to the MC Podcast. It's been a minute, but you are welcomed back by the new hosts of the show. I'm Andrew Crabtree, Marketing Director here at Master's Choice. You are?
Scott Harris, Corporate Sales.
Yes, you are. We will be hosting the new podcast, and even before everything that's been going on in the world, this is something that we've been working towards bringing back and revitalizing. But I think that with all the things going on right now, it makes for a good time to get some information out.
Yes.
Scott agrees. It's going to be a really
My
good show.
co-hosting is on point right now.
Have faith, people. Have faith. So welcome to our social distancing. We are more than 3 feet apart. Check. We joke, but this is a pretty serious thing that's going on, and I think that anybody that thought maybe lightly of it or thought that it was overkill, I think has probably changed their tone here in the last few days.
So it's funny, not funny, but you've seen that change in people, right? So like people I know that were very much like, oh my gosh, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. We are so ridiculous, and now they're hunkered down in their house already before there's even been an issue.
So one of the segments that we've planned on in the new version of the podcast that we plan to bring is a segment that we're going to do every episode called In the News. So I think if we go in the news, I think there's really only one topic to discuss.
Correct.
And you know what that is as we talk about coronavirus and COVID-19. I especially want to focus in, though, and why I felt really strongly about going ahead and getting this first episode out even before anything else that we're planning on doing with this podcast again. I wanted us to talk about how coronavirus, COVID-19, and all of the related ins and outs affect the ag community. And I think that it's best to offer the disclaimer before we start that we are recording this on Friday, March 20th, and
At
correct.
2:06
At 2:06 Central. So this is very fluid. This is subject to change, and please don't hold us responsible for that. We are bringing you the information as it stands today, and trying to give you information that has some backbone to withstand many different scenarios. So the first of those scenarios, we just got the news last night that California has entered into lockdown, and even as we record this, Governor Pritzker here in our home state of Illinois is preparing a press conference to where many people are expecting a stay-at-home order or some form of shelter-in-place or some form of more formal procedures in the state of Illinois.
Yeah, I think that we knew this was coming. So New York has now done this as well. San Francisco, I believe. So I guess the whole state now.
San Francisco
it
at
was
first.
Just a few communities in California first, and that's why we kind of said it somewhat jokingly, but serious too. Why we said the time of the podcast, because stuff changes like every hour almost. I feel like.
Yeah, I fully expect by the time we're done even recording this to get an alert and say that new procedures have been in place in Illinois. Yeah. It just seems like that's coming next for our state. So as of right now, as of this recording, we're talking about California being in lockdown, and I think every state that implements some form of shelter in place or some form of a formal lockdown, it's all going to look a little different, and it's all state by state. But there's a few things that we can talk about that should, in theory, be seen everywhere. First, I want to take a second to just define what California is doing, which is the first state to go into this. As your state implements procedures, you need to research that locally. But in California, the latest measure requires, and this is from an article we're going to reference several times throughout the recording of this, but this is a Newsweek article by Sue Kim, released this morning, 3:20 at 10 a.m. So this is about as current information as I could get as the recording of this. It's on Newsweek. It's titled California Lockdown Explained. So explaining what the California lockdown is, the latest measures require that all individuals living in the state of California to stay home or at their place of residence except as needed to maintain continuity of operations of the federal critical infrastructure sectors. So that's a mouthful.
Yep.
So break it down. You're staying home unless you're maintaining continuity of operations that federal critical infrastructure. Okay. What does that mean?
I don't know.
Well, a good thing we printed the article. So I will be honest. The first article I read last night after California announced its lockdown, I got a little nervous because we are shipping corn right now. It's very important to our business and to our customers that corn ships.
Yep.
Planting is coming. No matter how wet it is in your area, you're going to have to plant some corn at some point here. I got worried that as we're talking about lockdowns and sheltering in your homes, that this was going to affect, and it still might, right? I mean, this is a fluid situation.
Right.
But as of right now, so like I said, this first article I read got me a little panicked because it did not necessarily have the verbiage that this one does of critical infrastructure. The first article I read was a little more clickbaity, a little bit more provocative, and it was a little more alarmist.
That's a whole different topic.
Yeah, we won't get into it too much. But as we look at, so I think it's really important as we're talking about this podcast being an ag podcast for farmers, what does this mean to the agricultural community?
Yeah. So I think you're going to get into it, I would assume.
Yes.
But the biggest fear of this has obviously been what you just talked about is the delay there's a lot of industries that it'll be a little tough on them, but they'll be able to pick back up. If we don't get seed out and farmers don't have seed, that affects an entire year.
Yeah,
and particularly in dairy where you have, so if you don't have seed in the ground, you don't have anything to feed your animals.
Yeah.
So, there's some big dairies that have, enough supply that they'd be okay, but not most of them, especially right now.
So I've got some notes here on exactly. So we're talking about the critical infrastructure, and so the governing body for this, what defines critical infrastructure, is the CISA, which stands for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. So, mouthful. But this list that I'm going to read here in a second, you can find this list on CISA.gov. And according to that website, CISA.gov, I encourage you to research this. According to the CISA, these 16 sectors that we're about to read are considered so vital, and this is direct quote from them, so vital to the United States that their incapacitation or destruction would have a debilitating effect on security, national economic security, national public health or safety, or any combination of those. So this is a big deal. So these 16 industries keep things moving, keep us safe, keep us able to exist as society. And even if you dig into their website, it doesn't even list that these businesses are able to stay open. It actually lists these industries that I'm going to read. It is their responsibility to stay open. So those industries are, I'm just going to read them all 16 in a row. So bear with me here. That's the chemical sector, the commercial facilities sector, the communications sector, critical manufacturing, dams, defense industrial base, emergency services sector, the energy sector, financial services sector, the food and agriculture sector, so that's farming and ag-related products, government facilities, healthcare and public health, information technology, nuclear reactors, materials and waste, transportation systems. So that covers from the definition that I read on the CISA website, that covers trucking and transportation of goods, commercial trucking, and the water and wastewater systems sector. So it's a lot, and I don't expect there's not going to be a test. Don't worry. But the important ones here, as I have them, is food and agriculture, which, as you know, like I said, talking to farmers right now, this is talking to you people. If you're worried, am I still going to be able to operate my farm, my dairy? As of the CISA's guidelines, you, at this point, are covered. For us, that also includes, it's helpful to have the trucking industry because, we're, right now, like I said, we're shipping seed right now to people who really need it. It is your responsibility, according to the government, to operate. Yep. That's a weighty term, responsibility.
Yeah. I think that I never heard that before. I understood. I guess I thought I understood the concept of essential businesses. Like it made sense, this, and I would never really would have doubted that ag would have been in there, but to actually take it to the point of it's not only you have the right to, you have the responsibility to.
And it makes sense, right? Because, like what did I say? They have determined these businesses so vital that their destruction would have a lasting effect on national security, economic security, and public health and safety. And without a reliable food chain, then our nation is at a substantial risk. So I think to transition this a little bit, away from this article for a second, which is a great article and very informative. For us at Master's Choice, I think it's important to tell people that we understand and accept our role and responsibility as is defined by the government. We accept and our responsibility to play our part in the food chain, which would be supplying our silage corn to dairy farms that are going to feed it and able to perpetuate a cycle of dairy farming that is going to help feed our nation. So we understand the role we're going to play in this. The transportation sector is still open and covered as an essential infrastructure. So as long as we're able to get trucks, we're going to continue to ship seed. So expect your seed shipments from us. We have loads leaving the warehouse literally as we record this. And I think that the last thing for our part, the last statement, as you will, that from Master's Choice is that we understand that all bounce back and recovery efforts from the United States for our national economy and just the social state of our country, that requires us to have a safe, secure food chain and a stable ag sector. So we are going to do everything in our power until they tell us not to. We're going to keep showing up to work and keep shipping seed to you. Any comments? Anything to add there?
No, I think you summed it up really well. I don't think. I think when you look at this list, there's so many of these things on the list, and I'll definitely put ag in there that you don't. A lot of people don't appreciate until there's a chance that it may not work, and that the system may break. And it gives me a little bit more of a little hope in the government. Kind of restores a little bit of hope for me. That there's so many things I think that they do have control of in a good way, like it's under control for them, that we just don't appreciate until it happens.
Yeah. This is a difficult. I mean,
uncharted.
I've not lived a long life to this point, but in the life that I've lived, nothing compares to what we're seeing right now.
I mean, I think that you can, like, your dad would be a testament to that, right? Like he's gone through some of this process and change. And the other day when I was talking to him, he's like, I just don't know what to really think. Like I'm 60. What is he? 66? 66?
60s.
Years old. Like I've never been anything even close to this.
Right.
I was talking to a friend last night. We were talking about 9/11 affected us, but the effects of it lasted a long time. But life as a whole didn't necessarily change a ton.
Yeah, outside of
after the week, basically.
Right. Especially as far removed as we were from New York City here.
Right.
You don't feel it. This is being felt not just on an Illinois or a America or North America. This is a full global scale. I mean, there's nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
So it's a good point, Scott. As we look at what this means for you and your farm, I do want to take a chance to finish out this article, this Newsweek article. As your farm continues to operate, there are some things that you should consider, because like we've established, it is your responsibility to keep providing your service, your product. As you do that, you're going to come into contact with people from outsiders. You're gonna, whether that's truckers or whatever. There's gonna come a point where you're gonna come into physical contact with somebody outside your circle. So as it is your responsibility to stay open, it is also deemed your responsibility to do your best not to spread the coronavirus, COVID-19. So in this article from Newsweek, which I invite you to check out, I'm not an advocate of, I don't really know, but this article's here and it's informative. The World Health Organization, WHO, has advice for avoiding the spread of coronavirus disease. So let's just look at a few simple things. Some of these are going to be second nature to you. Some of these you've heard in the news over and over, but I do feel like as you're operating your business, do so under these guidelines. So for hygiene, clean your hands, wash frequently with soap and water, or a 60% alcohol hand sanitizer. I even read an article this week that says it doesn't even have to be antibacterial soap. It just has to be soap.
Yeah, you're just washing them off.
It breaks down the lipids or the fatty acids or whatever it is that binds the virus. So that soap is actually just deconstructing the virus on your hands. So should be doing this anyway, but it's important to remember, wash your hands. You should also be washing your hands after coughing or sneezing when caring for sick, or during or after food preparation. Also before eating and after using the toilet. I try to do these things.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I think a lot of us didn't realize how bad we are at hygiene.
Yeah, me
Until
too.
this, I fully like.
You've been telling me how bad I was at hygiene for years.
You're disgusting.
Yeah. Well, but here we are trying.
But you're being forced into it.
Trial by fire. All right. Maintain at least 3 feet distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Avoid touching your hands, nose, and
That was tough.
you just literally, as I read that, touched your face.
It's power of
Scott touched
suggestion.
his face, radio audience. So avoid touching your hands, face, nose, and mouth, and do not spit in public. That's a no-no. Don't spit.
Is that a big thing? I mean, has that been a thing? We doing that a lot before this?
Cover your mouth and nose with a tissue or a bent elbow. Do a little dab into your elbow there. When coughing or sneezing, discard the tissue immediately and clean your hands again.
Clean your hands.
And here's another big one. If you don't feel well, stay home.
Stay home.
There's going to be, we talked about the ag sector and it's our responsibility to keep going. I honestly feel privileged that we get to play that part. That we are essential to what's going on in the country. But there's going to be challenges that arise, even being allowed in the ag sector to continue business. Like, people are going to get sick and they're not going to be at work, and you're going to have to do your best to have procedures in place to make that work. So again, if you don't feel good, stay home. And then I think just everything that we're talking about now is very liquid. So just continue to monitor, just be in the know. Monitor safe, reliable news outlets, monitor government updates, continue to check in on the CISA.gov just to make, that essential list is fluid and can change. But as we said, as of today, as of this recording, and, because of everything outlined on CISA.gov, it does seem that the ag industry, farmers, those of us providing for farmers, we will be allowed to continue to operate.
Yeah, I think keep yourself informed. I will say this because it's just too important. Don't share stuff that you don't know to be a reputable source.
A lot of rumor.
I just think, to me, some of the stuff that I see shared and talked about by people, to me, is in this type of setting, is the equivalent of running into a crowded theater and yelling fire when there's no fire.
Yeah, it's irresponsible.
It's very irresponsible.
People are already panicked. No, don't give them any more reason to until something's official.
Yes.
Don't spread misinformation.
Irresponsible and just stop it. And also protect yourself from other. There's going to be. They were already talking about the increased number of fraud,
scams.
People
are going to
fraud.
try to take advantage of you.
People are absolutely going to try to tap into this, and particularly, gosh, the elderly, right, our toughest sector to protect. Scams, frauds, and then of course just the actual physical virus.
Yeah, the virus itself. Let's wrap this up, but let's try to end it on a little. I mean, this is a very dour, very gloomy topic, and there's no way around it. I mean, you're literally taking social and civil liberties from people for good reason. I'm not complaining. It's impossible to talk about coronavirus and be happy about it. But as we are wrapping this up and we're talking about farmers continuing operations, planting season is coming. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, we are shipping seed, farmers are receiving seed, and if it ever quits dang raining, we're going to put corn in the ground before too long. And I just can't help but feel a little bit of an excitement for that. Seeing there's some normalcy to spring planting. So I think that as you watch this, farmers, let yourself be excited about that. Look forward to getting out your tractor and your planter and doing something normal. And while you're doing it, take pride in the fact that you are a vital, essential infrastructure to this country, and that planting effort that you're putting in is very important.
Yep, I couldn't have said it better.
Well,
so I'm not
then
going
don't.
to. So I'm not going to.
Thanks so much for tuning in and watching. This was a little bit of a special podcast-ish episode. We're going to turn this around quickly and get it out as very time-sensitive information, but look out for other episodes from us, and we're going to make this a regular thing and hopefully bring you some topics of the day that are hopefully not always so negative.
Dour.
Yeah. And we'll give you some more positive information, but hopefully stuff that you can learn from and take back with you. So thank you so much for listening or watching, and we'll do this again soon.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. Wash your hands. Yeah, it is.
Is it like a kid show?
Bye.